Welcome to the first episode of Song Circles. These are simple interviews and conversations with worship leaders, church musicians, music directors, pastors, and everyone in between and in close proximity to worship and music ministry across all denominations, Christian-based organizations, and styles. It's all about learning and discussing similarities, differences, challenges, strengths, to learn from each other and to be in community with one another, realizing that all music and worship ministries are unified and united in harmony, since we are making music and song in and for the name of Jesus, for his glory and kingdom. All the other details are just details. For those who do not know me, my name is Benjamin, or Benji, and I will have my bio available on my Linktree and website if you are so interested in checking that out. Suffice it to say, I'm a collaboration coach who has been involved in music and worship ministry since I was a young teenager, and believe that I have a calling to educate, equip, and create community in this space. In this episode, I am interviewing a dear old friend and brilliant worship leader, Liz Perez, who is the worship director at Calvary Chapel Worship Center in Port Richey, Florida. This was actually recorded in July of 2019 when I first set out to start Song Circles, but considering that it was preceding the start of a master's program, changes at the school I work for, and of course, 2020, it unfortunately was not the right timing. Please enjoy this episode and comment on or contact us about questions you have or what you may have learned. More episodes are definitely coming soon. So, hello everyone. Welcome to this amazing interview. I am here with Liz Perez.
Hello.
She is the worship director of Calvary Chapel Worship Center in Port Richey, Florida. And we're super excited that she was able to meet with us today and chat with us. So I just have some really fun, awesome interview questions for her, and she is going to be kind enough to answer them for us. So, without further ado,
all right, let's go.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Liz. Let's see, I play guitar. Acoustic guitar is my primary instrument, and vocals. I honestly don't know how I got here. Do you ever have those like, wow, Lord, how did I get here? I started playing the guitar when I was 18. I'm over 30 now, so I kind of started late in the game. I didn't start, from a young age and go, I'm going to be in music forever. I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree in mass communication, and I worked in the business world. I had some kind of high-profile jobs for a while, and it just got to a point where I really wasn't happy. I served here for, 5-6 years, as a volunteer. And I just knew, I had that tug in my heart that, I wanted to transition out of the business world. So, it was just the Lord. It was just the Lord's timing. Somebody on staff here who kind of had the same, like on paper, the same kind of roles as me. They transitioned out. I was transitioning out of the business world, and it was like just a clean switch into ministry.
Very cool.
I've been married for 10 years. I have a 19-month-old, and I love what I do. I love my job. I love my people. It's just an awesome place to be when going to work doesn't really feel like you're working.
Like you're working.
So, yeah.
It's just part of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, it's so natural. It's just such from every little part of the job and how it fits into my life and my personal life. It's just natural. It's like an extension of myself, which is awesome.
Very cool. Very awesome. So, so how long have you been serving in church in worship ministry?
So I started serving. I was a volunteer in a totally different capacity at this church in 2007. And then I broke my ankle, so I stopped doing that. And then I came back into worship ministry in 2009, right after I got married. So we're going on 10 years now that I've been here. Yeah, in some capacity, whether I was on staff or volunteering. Yep.
Very, very cool.
Yes.
So you said you've been playing and singing since you were about 18 or so. Okay. So what got you started? Maybe you mentioned it, and forgive me if you did, but what got you started? Like, what made you say, I want to play and sing? Like,
gosh, that I can remember sitting in the congregation And I just felt like I have to audition, and I really don't want to. I had never sang before. I would sing like in the shower and in the car, and my mom would always make me sing because she would say, "You have such a nice voice." And when I picked up the guitar, it came really natural to me, and I just enjoyed it. And it just felt like I'm supposed to do this. I really don't want to. I really don't want to be on stage, but I was just kind of being obedient. And I think that's such a cool thing to look back into this, oh my gosh, I have to audition and I don't want to, and I don't want to be on stage, and I don't want to sing in front of people, into what the Lord can do when you're obedient, because it just opens door after door after door of opportunity when you're like, okay, I really don't want to, but you want me to. So, it's just kind of an act of surrender and obedience that He will use, because I'm a mess. I'm not perfect. On paper, I'm probably not even qualified for this job. I don't read music, but being obedient and just letting Him do the work, and just kind of taking your hands off of it and going, okay, He'll make it happen.
Yeah. So. It's crazy that sometimes when we try to get something, it's just the way the kingdom works. When we try to get something, it almost seems out of reach. But when we are kind of like, no, that's not me. I don't want that. The next thing you know, there we are doing the thing.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
That's so crazy. So let's just talk about, when was the best moment during our service rehearsal? Like, let's talk about highs and lows. What was the best moment, where you're just like, this is a defining moment for me in worship?
I don't know if there's one. And I think that's okay for people. I think, you don't have to have one. I think the best moment in a rehearsal or in a service is when you forget that you're doing what you're doing, and when the congregation, especially in a service, in the rehearsal, not so much, but when the congregation isn't aware that you're on stage, when they are so lost in the worship of Jesus, and they're so into His presence that it doesn't matter who's singing, it doesn't even matter if it's good, that they're just in it. And I think, for me as a worship leader, that's my goal. Like, I want that for every service. And, that's not going to happen. It doesn't happen for every service. And, you can kind of look out. And for me, I kind of will look out and survey, like, okay, over here, they're getting it. Over here, maybe not so much, and there's so much that comes into a congregation, so much that people bring in with them, during a service, that, that's where that spiritual warfare and that prayer really comes in, and prayer will cover a lot of it. But for me, that's my goal. Like, I want to get them to the point where it's not me, it's not any specific worship leader, any specific song, it's Jesus. And that's what that goal is. I think, for me personally, I probably got to a point where I was really comfortable and felt like I could talk to the congregation and encourage them and share words from the Lord, which has kind of honestly been a new thing to me over the past year. Nice. And getting to that point where it's like, wow, it's more than just music, and it's more than just a song. Getting to that has been really, really exciting and fulfilling for me, more so than just singing a song, because a song is powerful. But when you actually have something from the Lord for the people in that moment, that's like a game changer. That's when there's some breakthroughs and some things that can really happen. And that's the goal. That's
the song is the precursor to greater and wonderful things that are meant to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. So just, whether it's funny or awful or just teaching in a from a strange moment sort of way, what was one of the worst moments, or just one of those moments during a service or a time in ministry that you were like, this was bad?
A specific time, we have had awful sets. We have had songs that were just so bad. But I always jokingly say, like, it's not really jokingly, but even when worship is bad, it's good. Even when worship isn't perfect. And sometimes I'm like, I try so hard, and kind of like what we were talking about, I have to stop trying. And I'm learning that I have to stop trying to make it good, because it's not up to me. I can prepare, and I should, because that's being a good steward of what the Lord has given me. But we've had some really bad sets. I think something that comes to mind is we were actually playing in the high school band, and someone walked across the stage and unplugged the electric guitarist's gear. So, we just didn't have anything, and it was really awkward, and, so that was rough. I remember one time we started a song, this was in high school too. We started a song and then just like casually stopped playing, maybe 15 seconds in, just one by one. It was like, okay. So I remember I was like, all right, we're going to do that again. Praise the Lord for second chances, and it was so like, this wasn't great, but you know what? I kind of like those moments. Not in the moment, I hate them. I'm dying inside.
Yeah.
But when you get off the stage and you're like, you know what? The Lord was doing something there, and it's easy to say that, but he really is, he's showing you and he's showing the congregation, like, we're just people. I think, there's this, for lack of a better term, there's like this celebrity status thing with certain worship leaders, not me, but people in bigger venues that are like, I'm the worship leader, or you are no more important than the usher or the person pouring the coffee. It's a body and it's a machine. So I think it's nice sometimes, it keeps you humble and it keeps you like dependent upon the Lord. Like, I need you, I need to make sure that I'm like prayed up and covered, because things are going to happen that I can't control. So
mistakes bring us into reality.
Exactly.
And keep us humble.
Yes, very true.
So tell us a little bit about this church, about Calvary Chapel Worship Center. What is your culture like? What do you do really well? What are some things maybe that you would like to see different or change or
Yeah. The worship arts ministry here, from any worship leader I've ever talked to, we do things really weird. We do things crazy. We have different people. We have over 100 people, and we're rotating, and every band is a different band every week, and that's insane. And there's no reason it should work other than the Lord has said, okay, I'll help you here, because that's not the norm. So I think we're really good at using people, and by doing that, it has given me a heart for people, which is so cool, because before I came here, I was like, oh, people are so draining. And, they can be. That's why Jesus would get away, and he would spend time alone, because he was surrounded by thousands and thousands of people. But I feel like to be an effective Christian, not even a ministry leader, you have to love people. You can't isolate yourself and call yourself a Christian, because that's not Christ. He was always among the people. So we're awesome at that. What we're not so awesome at, gosh, I don't know. And I'm not saying that to like, I'm not going to say anything bad. I can't think of a thing, maybe communication within departments, and maybe taking the time to appreciate each other, because we get so busy. This is a busy church. There's always something going on. We're not a humongous mega church, but we're pretty big. We have a lot of people who come in and out the doors, and we get so focused on ministry that we forget about ministry. We don't minister to each other as much as we probably should. Ministry and leadership can be extremely lonely and can be extremely draining. You're giving, pouring out. Nobody's filling you back up. You have to make sure you're staying filled up, and a lot of people get burnt out. So you have to be mindful of that, and it's just the nature of ministry. We're not the only ones who stink at that, and I think that's probably a church-wide problem.
Which is a hard thing to do when when people are coming to you trying to get sustenance and spiritual growth and development and musical and band practice, and then you need fed too, and so to make sure that gets done too is
you have
huge.
You have to be really wise, and you have to be really cautious with your time, and you have to learn it's okay to say no. Like, I can't, sorry, I need to spend time with my family, or I need a break. So that's probably, I would say, a big one for our church. And a lot of the people here have been here for years, and that's awesome. You know, because they're in here and they're planted, and they're growing because they're staying planted, like all our youth ministries and our small groups and stuff. So
awesome.
It's just tough. So I think that's
a lot of
probably
moving parts.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the hardest part of what you do?
Gosh,
And you do a lot. Worship leaders,
Yeah.
music directors wear a lot of hats.
Yes.
They do anything from parking cars to transposing music to...
Gosh, I do. I have a lot of different things that I do here. I'm part of the creative team. I'm over all of like the stage design and the decorating for holidays.
Wow.
I'm over the 4th of July production. So there is a lot. The hardest thing to do is people, to be around people and to help people.
Okay.
But it's the most rewarding.
Right.
So it's very good. You can get that email and you want to just, you have to just wait a minute.
Take a moment.
Right. Or, you have those people and again, we have over 100 people. So there's a lot of different personality types.
Right.
And I think the hardest thing in this job is knowing your people and knowing what their personality type is. So I know this guy, I can talk to him this way. But if I wanted to talk this way to this woman, not going to work, So I think that, and I think not being able to be in two places at once, and part of that is the need to raise people up under me, but that takes a lot of time, So we have a youth ministry with a lot of young people, and it's hard to be there with them and be with our adult worship team and be in this side. So that's juggling people's schedules and people's personality types. We have 7 bands every week that I put together, and I put the sets together. So all of those moving parts and making sure that the right schedule and the right drummer and the right song and the right key and the right, all of that's intense. Yeah. So there's weeks that are great and smooth. Like I just did all the sets this week, great, smooth, no problem. And then, who knows what the next week will bring. Mm-hmm. But people are the most challenging and most rewarding.
Totally relate to that. There's you can have all the energy and plans in the world, and then sometimes an entire day can just be keeping the peace, making sure that people feel loved and appreciated, and also communicating things effectively, because communication takes energy as much as even just running a band practice or learning a chord progression. So
that stuff's easy. That's no problem.
Yeah,
it's all the back end stuff of it and the people and putting that together, getting to that band practice, and that's the harder part. So.
And I'd be willing to say, I mean, that means you're in the right thing. You're the right person for the job, because you know that you need to communicate things differently to different people, and one person learns this way, this person learns this way. How do I communicate that effectively? Yeah. And also, that's extremely draining. So, so what is the fun stuff? What do you think? What's the stuff you're like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do? Is it making sets?
No.
Is it?
I like that. It's not the fun part. The fun part is the rehearsal. And being with your family, this church family, jumping over into the kids' sets. There's times where I'll do like our main worship set, and then I'll run next door and I'll play like something in high school, and then I'll get to go next door, and it's awesome, being with these people and watching, someone who comes in maybe as a novice get to that like intermediate stage and seeing how the Lord grows people and
moving into their potential.
That is so and being a part of that, like, and getting to be a hands-on person who the Lord used to help mold them. Man, that's the stuff that I live for. Like, I love teaching people, and I love being like a positive influence and like a wise voice in their life, especially these young kids who they're just being continually fed lies and continually told that they're not enough, so that's a highlight. I love being with the young kids, but just I like the rehearsals. I like being with the people and joking and having fun, and we have all those little things that come up, funny little practice moments, and it just creates that bond. Even when we rotate bands every week and every position is different, you still have those bonds with people because you're like doing battle with them. It's more than just playing a song. You're like right on the front lines there. So those are my favorite times, I think.
Very cool, very cool. And it like you said, you do have a lot of moving parts here, not just in general because it's a large ministry, but literally at the same day you have 3 different bands playing at the same time.
Right.
So that's neat. There's a lot of things happening all at one time. What's one thing that you wish that other people, maybe for no other reason than just to understand? Because sometimes, like you said, leadership can be lonely, and people don't always realize what's involved when you're looking down at a situation than when you're at the bottom looking up, like, what are you doing up there? You know, what's one thing you wish people understood about what it is you do? And maybe it's something you've already mentioned, but what's maybe something you wouldn't go around saying, hey, do you know I do this all the time?
Sure.
Do you know this is frustrating for me? Or that you wouldn't wear a t-shirt that said, I do this a lot, you know? What's something you wish people knew, like, that maybe they would be a little more understanding about? Maybe decisions that are made or you know.
That's a great question. And, you know, I think for me, a lot of the things that I do because I am told to do them. And I don't mean that like, I only do this because you told me to. You know, there's a lot of involvement in what I do from, you know, leadership at the church. And that's fine with me. That takes a lot of pressure off of me.
Sure.
Because if I do exactly what you tell me to do, you know, not exactly, but if I'm doing what you're telling me to do, you can't be mad at me because I've done what you've asked me to do.
You're carrying out the directive.
This is what you've asked me to do. You know, we have a very specific vision here. I love our vision. I think it's a great thing for this congregation in this area. I think a lot of people believe or think that I am just doing this and this is me, and that's not necessarily the case. And you know, I don't really care if they know that or not, because in the back of my mind, I know, you know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and if it's not, I will be told otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess again, just getting back to the scheduling side of things and the communication side of things, I would love for everyone who's ever scheduled to put the sets together just for 1 week.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I would love for them to see what happens when I schedule them and they decline and they didn't put their block out date in.
Or they
and I have to go
say,
through.
Okay, and then call you the night before and
don't
say,
do that.
hey, I won't be there.
Yeah. Because it is literally a Jenga tower. When I pull that one piece from that band crumbles.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have to take from this band and put it over here, and from that band and put it over here, and call this one. You know, sometimes it can be intense. Sometimes it can be every band has been changed and every set has been changed. Because the person that was
a day or more
whole
to
day.
do. Yeah.
Because the person who was playing the guitar and singing this song can't make it. So now I have to maybe find someone who can sing that song in that key with the guitar, or I have to find a vocalist and a guitarist who can maybe sing that song, but maybe can't sing that song. So now I have to change a new song and make sure this guitarist knows that song, or tell them in advance that it's a song they've never played. So times 7 sometimes, like that's insane.
Yeah.
So I would love for especially my repeat offenders out there to have to do that, you know, for a day. That's the most frustrating part, because I'm super organized. I have to be in this position. I use Planning Center, which is amazing, but I use it probably to a level that most people don't. Like I have templates created for every week and for every band. And
that's awesome.
I just load them in and they're there and everybody's happy, and then everybody declines and then I start all over. So, you know, it's challenging, but it's part of it, you know, and I don't know another job in the world that I would get to do what I get to do, you know, and no matter where you go and what you do, there's going to be things you do and don't like.
And Liz is one of those unique people. There's a handful of musicians out there who have administrative ability.
Ooh, we exist.
But they're not. Usually with creative people, you'll find that, you know, depending on what their thing is or who they are, they may not always be the most administrative people, or
true.
even the best communicative people.
Yeah.
Communicators. All right. Something like that.
Yeah.
For this month, we're talking about fear, you know, being afraid of the unknown, or not being good enough, or I'm not adequate. I want to do this. I feel called to do this. I've been asked to do this, but maybe I'm afraid to do this. And so how do you handle that with maybe people, volunteers in your ministry, or if it's something that you've ever felt or gone through?
Sure,
like, how is that something you can kind of come to terms with or keep moving forward?
Yeah, the first time I stepped on a stage here, it was in the high school ministry. It was the first time I ever played guitar and sang in front of more than my mom, So in the back of my head, all I could hear was, get off the stage, you do not belong here.
Wow.
Because these people were so good. These were some like seriously good musicians that I was on stage with. It wasn't like your run-of-the-mill high school band. It was like, oh my gosh, these people are good, So much of me wanted to run, and I would hear that from time to time over the years. You're not a worship leader. You're just a singer. Get out of this.
Wow.
So some of that was probably flesh. Some of that was pride. Some of that was probably the enemy. A combination of things. Because when you're called somewhere, he will try to get you out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he will try whatever he can do to get you out of your calling. So being able to kind of overcome that to some degree, I think there's always those feelings, throughout life of, I shouldn't be singing this song. Wow, this song's a little bit high for me. Am I going to pull it off? That's probably one of my concerns now. Like, gosh, I don't have a really high range. I can only sing in these keys. That's infuriating. I deal with that a lot with our younger kids, because I think a big enemy of youth in this capacity in a worship ministry, and really not just youth but adults too, is comparison. I think comparison is super duper dangerous, even on a positive side, negative and positive. So if I'm saying I'm not as good as her, gosh, she's so good, versus I'm way better than him, why is he here? Those are really two dangerous places you don't want to find yourself. Because the root of that is pride to some degree. So I think I just tell the youth kids a lot, God doesn't want you to be that person. He wants you to be you. You are called to do what you can do. I can only do what I can do. I'm not supposed to be anybody else. And I think a lot of it, again, comes back to knowing who you are in the Lord and knowing who you are in Christ. Because if you struggle with that, you're always going to be comparing. You're always going to be looking. I think it's one thing to want to improve and to get better at something. But if you're looking at it with this like connotation, this negative outlook of I'm never going to be that, no, you're not, because you're not that. You're not called to be that. So I think it's, as a worship leader in a worship ministry, you have to know who you are in Christ, and you have to be comfortable with being you. Somebody gave a sermon here not too long ago, and the whole takeaway was stay in your lane. This is where God has put you. Stay in your lane. You're not meant to go into this lane or that lane. You stay in your lane and you'll drive just fine,
Because everyone's going somewhere different.
Exactly. And I think, understanding that and being content with that, and something I have to pray a lot and tell myself a lot, and I guess I tell the Lord more than anything, like, look, you've called me here, so you're gonna have to make this happen. Like, if you want me to do what they're asking me to do, you have to make it happen, because I can't do that. And I'm cool with that. Like, Lord, they want this, or this person wants this, or I've been asked, like here it is. You better do it. I'll be like, do you see this email? Like 6 people just blocked out or called out on me. So you better send in some people. So once you get to the point where you're okay with not having all the answers, not being the best, and not, competing with other people, and just understanding the Lord has called you to do this, not to do that or anything else. It's easy. It's easy from there, because you're relying on the Lord. Easy.
And nothing can really, well, as long as you stay in that place, nothing can really come against you, hurt you, because, people's thoughts or what they think, or it's like, no, it doesn't matter, because I'm supposed to be here, and God's making a way for me to be here.
And that's hard really for some people, but that's how you survive. I really think that's how you survive in a worship ministry, especially if you're, really involved with it, or there's a lot of people. If it's the same 5 people in a band, that's a different setup. But when there's always new people coming in and new things going on, that's a whole different ballgame.
So good. Great advice. Okay, 2 more questions. So what is the most important aspect of worship to you? Which is kind of a big, loaded, huge question. But if there's like what is there something that comes to mind initially, or just at the top, or quickly, or is that one of those, like, you have something in mind? If someone asked me that, all my mind would just go blank. Like,
no, I do.
So.
I think what comes to mind is surrender. Worship is so much more than just music, and I say that a lot, but it really is. It's a whole lifestyle, and just surrendering all of it. Surrendering yourself, your family, your job, your ability, surrendering that to what the Lord wants to do. That's everything. That's, once you can get that, you can kind of go anywhere from there. And even in an actual praise and worship setting, surrendering, when you're standing like this and you really want to raise your hands, but you don't because you're afraid of what someone's going to think, versus the freedom you have when you raise your hands and you sing to the Lord. That's like a night and day difference, and for those of you out there who maybe struggle with that, just surrender. The Lord wants to use those worship times to fill you up and to touch you. And so I would just say surrendering, just giving it all to Him, all your whole life, all of it, not just these 15 minutes during a service, or this part of my life, or my 10% tithe. No, all of it. He's got it. He wants it all.
So good. I surrender. Very good.
Yes.
So the last question I have for you is, what advice, if you had like one blip or thing to say to other, not just worship ministry leaders, but maybe to musicians or people in the tech ministry, or to youth pastors, or anyone, in some sort of level of ministry.
Yeah.
What would be kind of a thing, like a thing for the road, or just something that
I would say, and this might sound harsh, and I don't mean it harsh, but I would say, get your own agenda and your pride out of the way. Wow. We all struggle with that to some degree, right? We're all prideful. No matter where you're at, you can't sit there and say you're not prideful about something. We all battle it. Some people really struggle with it, and some people not so much. You cannot be a functioning member of a ministry and be prideful. You can't go into a situation and want your agenda to be the only outcomes. Right. Now, having good ideas and suggestions, that's great. That's what makes a ministry work. But when you go in like a steamroller and you try to just, barrel through everything because you want your way, and you're only happy when you get your way, and you're not willing to take out the garbage, and you're not willing to do whatever it takes, you're never going to make it. There's absolutely zero room for pride in ministry. So I think it's a good thing to continually examine yourself, and pride will sneak in really weird areas. I remember not too long ago, I scheduled a meeting with them, and I asked them to meet in a specific place. And they texted me and said, actually, I can't meet there. Let's meet here. And it just was like, wow. Wait a minute. No. And I got upset. Like, I scheduled this meeting with you. And then I was like, oh. And it was pride. It was so prideful of me, because I don't know what's going on with them. Maybe their way of communication was not the way I would have done it. But the Lord was showing me, like, look how silly and prideful you're being, that they don't want to meet where you said you wanted to meet. Yeah. And that's so bad. Like, that's so stupid, So get your pride out of the way. Get your expectations out of the way. Something that has always helped me is I go with the expectation that my ministry is the least important. And I don't mean that, but what I mean is, if I put everybody else ahead of me, I'm going to be okay, because when these things come in and changes happen and things are thrown at me at the last second, it's not going to matter. Okay, great. It's for the greater good. Could you just imagine like what ministries and churches would be like if everybody adopted this idea of, this ministry is more important than mine, this ministry is more important than mine. And that's a weird way of saying it, but it's like a marriage. If I'm putting my husband's needs above my own, and he's putting my needs above his own, both of our needs are going to be met, but neither one of us are going to feel like we're neglected.
Right.
You know. So
and that's a kingdom principle.
Yeah.
That's a biblical principle.
Right.
You know, you're dying to, first of all, dying to self, which is kind of like what you mentioned, and then also putting others before yourself.
Right.
You know, so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Although some things that make perfect sense, we sometimes
struggle.
have
a
a difficult time making that happen.
It's true. It's a constant fight. You know, something I've prayed a lot is, Lord, crush me. Everything that's of me and not of you, get it out, because I can't function that way. Like, I can't function with my own
and you have
desires.
a lot to do.
Yeah. I got work to do. So yeah, for sure.
Very cool. Very cool. Any final closing words for our viewers?
You know, just enjoy whatever it is the Lord has called you to do. Enjoy it and do it to the best of your ability. Don't be a poor steward of what He's called you to do. So whatever it is, if it's, you know, in the ministry or outside of the ministry, do it for His glory. You know, we need light in the darkness. Not everyone has the privilege and honor of working within a ministry or working within a church. Somebody who's working, you know, in a restaurant or in the business world, who's a believer, your role is just as important. So do it for His glory.
So good. Awesome. Yeah. Well, Liz, thank you so much for being with us today.
This was great.
Really, really awesome. And so we hope to stay in touch and see what else is going on around here. And I know you have band practice to get to in like 15 minutes.
Yes, I do.
So have a great band practice.
Thanks.
And see everyone later.
All right. Bye, guys.
That was truly phenomenal and insightful. Here are some things we learned about Liz. She oversees and administrates a very large ministry with many moving parts and many, many people, including musicians, ministry leaders, pastors, and of course people in the congregation. She's a multi-talented artist, being a musician, set designer, interior decorator, just to name a few things. And yet she is exceptionally organized and administrative, something that we've already mentioned is not always common amongst artists and creative people. She is a humble, faithful, and empathic leader who is tuned into people, their personalities and communication styles, and who they are as a whole. It's easy to say that everyone who is under her leadership is very blessed and can bet that she is championing them and looking out for their best interest. Liz had some amazing things to say, two of those things being something I very much resonate with. She said that the hardest thing to do is to be around people and to help people, but it is the most rewarding. To me, a truer thing has never been said. There is nothing in life more valuable or rewarding than to invest in the life of another person and to love them and recognize them for their fullest potential. So it would make sense that it is also the most exhausting thing, especially for people like her and myself, honestly, that are constantly processing what is happening in a person, what are they thinking, what are they feeling, how do they understand the world around them, how do they communicate, and so on and so forth. Another thing that Liz said is that you cannot be a functioning member of a ministry and also be prideful. That is a mic-dropping statement for sure. That means that we must, as musicians and artists, be on a constant guard of our thoughts and feelings and check ourselves when we recognize pride in any area. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Also, we know that pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Overall, here are some takeaways from this interview. Understand the people in your ministry and seek to know them and love them above all else. Raise up others to do what you do without pride or fear. Beware of comparison on any place on the continuum of comparison. Know who you are in the Lord and be who you are confidently. Stay in your lane and do what you are supposed to do. Surrender everything to the Lord, especially everything you are inclined to manage yourself. Lose your agenda. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching this very first episode of Song Circles. We're excited to bring you more content moving forward. Remember, the most important thing and the greatest commandment is found in Matthew 22, 36 through 40. Love God with everything you are, and then love everybody around you with all you've got. Everything else is subject to this.